are watching India Today.
All right, the government in fact has defended the appointment of Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat as the army chief. The government sources have told India Today Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat led surgical strikes in Myanmar operation and is best suited to meet the terrorism challenge. With over 10 years experience in counterinsurgency along the line of control, including leading the surgical strike in Myanmar, as I already told you, the government has found Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat is the most suited for the top job of the army. Source in the Defence Ministry has also asserted the appointment of the Chief of Army Staff is based on selection from a panel of officers in the rank of the army commanders. Sources also said all officers in the panel are very competent and the most suitable among them was selected. However, it must be emphasized the prerogative of selecting the eligible candidate from the panel is and alone of the government. So this is the big story that we are following, and to discuss this appointment that is now creating a lot of political heat, I am being joined by Shaina of the BJP. We are also being joined by Atul Anjan. He's the National Secretary of the CPI. Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, defense expert, is also joining us on the broadcast. Uttam, Reddy, spokesperson of the Congress. Along with them will be my colleague Jugal Purohit and Gaurav Sawant, who are in fact going to join us on this broadcast. Let me first start with you, Shaina. The prerogative is of the government to appoint the army chief, but yes, you know, overlooking the seniority, there are these allegations that are being made on the government about politicizing the entire selection process. There has been a way army chiefs have so far been named. The government this time has gone and have overlooked two senior generals, lieutenant generals. How do you defend the opposition's charge?
First, it shows you the absolute frustration of the opposition if they are trying to make a political point out of a prerogative and a decision which is based on merit and a decision which is the prerogative of the government. Do understand that General Bipin Rawat is not some ordinary entrant who has superseded his seniors. Look at his contribution when it came to the ambush in Myanmar. Look at his experience 10 years on the line of control. And for the Congress that seems to be so frustrated and insecure to raise an issue on competency versus compassion, they must understand that to combat terror we need competency, and that competency has been seen in General Rawat's case, and it is clearly the prerogative of the government to keep the country safe and take decisions. I don't even want to get into a commentary on what the Congress did in the 1980s, who they appointed, why they appointed. We at least have no ulterior motive. The motive is very clear, which is the safety, security of this country, and the hands must be given to somebody who has the experience, who has the competency, and who is there in trial and tested in the past, be it the line of control or Myanmar. Okay, let me just take that to the Congress, which led the charge as far as the opposition is concerned. Of course, the left party also now, opposing this move, or in fact having a different point of view as far as the entire move is concerned. Mr. Uttam Reddy, the government, the BJP says it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to appoint the Chief of Army Staff. Why are you trying to create an unnecessary controversy where there is none, is what the BJP is saying?
What I'd like you and your viewers to know is that I'm not only a Congress spokesperson, I was a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force, commissioned in 1981, and the generals that you're talking about are slightly senior to me in service. So I think I know the subject quite well, having been a pilot in the Air Force for many years. I was a fighter pilot. I think what the government did is very wrong. For decades now, there's been a convention, a tradition, a practice of appointing the senior most Lieutenant General as the Chief of the Army Staff. Today, by interfering with that process, government is trying to violate the sanctity of the Indian Army. Now, I just heard the BJP spokesperson. I don't think they should make such comments that General Rawat was competent and experienced. Yes, General Rawat was experienced and competent, but so was General Bakshi and so was General Haris. So, there's been for more than 3 decades a convention that as far as chiefs are concerned, the senior most army commander in the army becomes the chief of the army.
Yes.
The senior most commander in the Air Force becomes the Air Force chief. This is a tradition. This is a tradition. This is a precedent. Because what you're doing now is the BJP is politicizing it. And what message are you giving in the armed forces?
Shall I cite 5?
Shaina, I'll come to you. Shaina, I'll just come to you. Let him complete.
There is one more thing I must tell you, which is a common gossip in the army higher circles now.
Yes.
That Mr. Ajit Doval is from the Gadwal area, and so is General Rawat.
Sir, let's keep that out. Sir, let's keep that common gossip and WhatsApp messages out of this debate. Let me, before I go to my other guests, before I go to my political guests and of course our defense expert, let me just very quickly bring in Gaurav Sawant for a moment here. Gaurav, you know, this whole argument about, competence as of now overtaking seniority, the government looking at the distinguished service of Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat before appointing him. The other argument would also be that Lieutenant Bakshi, who is from the Armored Corps, possibly has, because his office posting and the area where he has been posted so far, because he was in the Armored Corps, he has not served in areas where Lieutenant Bipin Rawat has. Does that now, should that now be held against him as far as this entire, debate is concerned, and also clarify about the point of competency? I'm sure all the 3 gentlemen, all the 3 generals are competent enough to lead the army.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on there, Ankit. When it comes to the selection of the next chief, it is all army commanders and the vice chief. They are considered. As far as the norm is concerned, yes, it is the accepted norm that it's the senior most general amongst the army commanders or the vice chief who's chosen as the next chief. But there is no rule. The Congress party gentlemen, they're saying that that's the rule since the British times. No, there is no such rule. In fact, he would remember well that Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister had chosen Lieutenant General Arun Kumar Sridhar Vaidya over Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha, who was the senior most Lieutenant General at that point of time. And General Sinha went home like any good general would. So, there is no rule, there is no politicization of the armed forces. It is the Prime Minister's prerogative who he chooses as his next army chief.
Yes.
It is the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet that takes a decision. All army commanders and the vice chief are equally competent, and as far as the army is concerned, at the rank of the army commander, there is no annual confidential report, there is no ACR written, because they are considered the best, the cream of the army. They lead army commands. So then it's the Prime Minister's decision who he chooses. It is very unfortunate that this issue is being politicized, because all generals are equally competent. General Rawat is getting is being seen as a little above over others because of his having led that operation, masterminded that operation which went to Myanmar, and also operations in Jammu and Kashmir, where we see a lot of army deployment and perhaps surgical strikes in future.
Absolutely. I will just come to Mr. Atul Anjan. Sir, I'm just coming to you. I will get your opening comments, and I will also get a reaction from our defense expert. Of course, we'll get a reaction from Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad as well on this, and Jugal will be giving us a side of what his sources in the MOD are telling us about this entire move. We're stepping to a very short break, coming back in just 1 minute. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let me now go across to Mr. Atul Anjan of the left there. Mr. Anjan, why create this controversy, sir? Are you not convinced with the choice of the government? Is there a question on the experience and the competence of Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat that is the problem, or is it just that the opposition has now decided to oppose every move of the Modi government?
Mr. Ankit, neither I am very much frustrated, nor I am speaking here as an spokesperson of Ministry of Defence biodata giving all the other, you see, lieutenant generals. That is not my job, and a political party should not do like that. I am just simply saying it. There are certain conventions and there are certain parameters which has been set. And once you remember, just now your correspondent said, during the Indira Gandhi's regime, that parameter was challenged and that was oversighted. And General Vaidya was appointed. How much hue and cry. I just want to remind just BJP people, at that point of time, Mr. Atul Bihari Vajpayee, what he spoke on the parliament, what Mr. L.K. Advani said, and at that point of time, Mr. Janasangh leader, he was the president of Bharati Janasangh, Balraj Madhok, what he said, and Mr. Bachraj Vyas, what he said, RSS leader, what Mr. Devras said. All these things are remembered to me. I don't have time to quote it. But at the same time, as the Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee said, that on the issue of the appointments in the army, we should not discuss many things. We should go by the conventions, and we have enough experience. He referred the case of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and there must be seniority and all that. And I say, why on the basis of the on the question of appointment on the Central Command, Western Command, and other Eastern Command, you put the people, those who are seniority based. Because the Central Command is the very biggest command. So you put the senior most. Accordingly, you have to think over when you have to appoint somebody. Let us not make it a political debate, but at the same time, I think the present regime people must remember.
All right, let's not make a political debate out of it, but we will get a reaction from Shaina NC on this as well. I'll unfortunately have to slip into a very short break at this point. I'm coming back and we'll straight go to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad for his expertise on how does this entire debate and how does this entire controversy affect the army, and as the BJP is also saying, the morale of the armed forces. I'm just coming back and we are straight going to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad. Welcome back. Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, you've heard the three political parties, the party in power, the two opposition parties making their arguments about this, about Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat superseding two Lieutenant Generals and being named as the Chief of Army Staff. He'll be taking over on December 31st. The entire controversy around it, sir, how does you as a former, army person, and what do you think is going to be the effect of this as far as the armed forces are concerned? It seems that a lot is being talked about the morale of the forces as of now.
You make me laugh. In everything we want to make politics. Every little activity that may take place anywhere in the country, we will give a political color to it. We have spent over 30 minutes discussing politics of an issue which is completely non-political. It should be nowhere on the political scene to discuss an appointment of an army chief. Army chief, as it is a very difficult job. It's a tough job under the current situation and circumstances. And we are only making his job more difficult by giving it a political color. 30 minutes we have spent discussing politics of it. Now let me make my point very clear. Look, we must understand that all army commanders and the Vice Chief of the Army Staff are equally competent. They would not have reached that position after 38 years of service to be incompetent. Each one of them is as competent as the other. Must understand what the government's policy at the moment is. And I'll take you back to the Prime Minister's address soon after Uri's Uri attack, that we are now going to take tactical responses against terrorism, and we are developing a strategic response against terrorism to eliminate it from the surface of this continent, of the subcontinent. And therefore, they have examined the dossiers of not only 3, they have examined the dossiers and record of service of 6 or 7 people. And they have come to the conclusion that the person who is at the moment ready to deliver or possibly deliver the best out of the lot under the difficult situation is this gentleman whom they have appointed. Please, for God's sake, go through his career profile without going into the politics. And don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying person A, B or C was any inferior. They're equally competent in their own manner in which they've developed their 38 years of career in the military. General Rawat has been commanding a brigade in the United Nations peacekeeping force, which by itself is a multinational force fighting insurgency and difficult situation.
Absolutely.
General Rawat has commanded a brigade in Sopore in the heart of insurgency in Kashmir. General Rawat has commanded 19 Division, who is the principal division fighting insurgency in Kashmir.
Yes.
General Rawat has commanded 3 corps, the largest corps controlling 7 major generals.
Yes.
You are saying that he led the attack into Myanmar. He doesn't lead attack into Myanmar. The army chief doesn't lead surgical strikes. The army chief or the corps commanders and the div commanders don't go and attack into Myanmar.
Yes.
They do planning. Now the point you must understand is that there is an army chief who the government is appointed today.
Right.
We must all support him.
Yes.
So that he can think independently and provide the government with possible options to combat terrorism in the evolving situation in Pakistan and India. I want to also tell you, what has Pakistan done just now? Not that I'm saying we want to be like Pakistan. Certainly we don't want to be like Pakistan. Certainly we don't want to politicize the army like the Pakistan army is politicized. But they have, who have they made the army chief? A gentleman who has commanded 10 corps opposite Kashmir.
Yes.
The gentleman who is most conversant with terrorism and who they think will continue with terrorist war against India.
Yes.
Please, for God's sake, understand that A, B and C, all of them are very good.
Yes.
The kind of knowledge they all possess is equal, if not better, one than the other.
Okay.
The point at issue is this.
Right.
There is an opportunity for the government to get a person who can evolve possible options, surgical strikes, many other different kind of options to combat terrorism, which is the prime objective of this country, to defeat terrorism and completely remove it.
Absolutely.
So
very well put there, sir. You have explained it very well as far as the new army chief is concerned. Let me quickly get in Jugal Purohit, who has been waiting, and then I will go to Shaina NC and the Congress for a reaction on this. Jugal, you know, what are you picking up from your sources within the Ministry of Defence? There is, of course, after this entire controversy, a lot of people talking about it. Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad now saying that the entire nation should be behind the man who has been now named by the government. Is there also some sort of murmurs as far as the MOD is concerned in the way this decision was taken right in the middle of December? Usually the government names the army chiefs almost 60 days in advance.
Well, Ankit, that's also a point of technicality. The Navy chief was named just about 20 days in advance, so that really isn't much of a problem. But answering your question about the murmurs, now I would rather use the word heartburn, and I say that because I'll give you a small example. General Dalbir, who was the incumbent, the 28th Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army, is a Gorkha officer. General Rawat also is a Gorkha officer. Now, not too many people outside the army perhaps will understand, but for a single regiment of sorts to have 2 successive army chiefs is a little unusual. It's a little rare. General Bakshi, who was largely tipped to be the next Chief of Army Staff, is an armored corps officer. And the last time we had one was about 20 years ago when General Shankar Chaudhary was the chief.
Yes.
So there is this slight amount of internal heartburn that should not matter to the country so much. But there's a larger point, Ankit, which the government has to answer. Is the government wrong? The government is not wrong in what it has done. Could it have done better? It definitely could have. The reason I say this is because you take so long. You're just about 14 days from the time that the chief retires.
Yes.
You want to create the post of a Chief of Defence Staff. There's a lot of activities which are going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Ultimately, you come up with a name and there is no mention of the Chief of Defence Staff. Let's understand one thing. This was the single biggest reform.
Okay.
And now as we see the situation evolving, this government will not have perhaps the opportunity to appoint a Chief of Defence Staff. What happens to this particular missed opportunity is something that perhaps is unfortunately not being debated at all.
Absolutely.
So very quickly, Ankit, the point is that General Bipin Rawat, of course, is a highly suited gentleman. The political executive is accountable, is answerable. The army is not, and the political executive sets the direction for the army.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong in the government choosing General Bipin Rawat.
Yes.
It's only in the manner in which they've done, and the fact that there's been no Chief of Defence Staff. These are the points which should concern
Let me take this to Shaina. Shaina, you heard the defence expert, you heard my colleagues, and you also heard the accusations being made by the opposition. They are saying that you are trying to destroy the set precedents so far. and create uncertainty in other institutions as well. The government, of course, as we have been saying, is well within its right to appoint whosoever they choose to as the chief of the army staff. But, calling the opposition unpatriotic because they are questioning the move, isn't it taking it a little further?
Firstly, let me please say that Prasad ji summed it up so beautifully by weighing the merits in the public domain, and I'm glad it was a defense expert like himself doing it and not a political party to prove that there is no agenda. Now, when it comes to national security, this is not some cherry picking as the opposition has been talking about. The fact that there are lots of people who are considered, there are aspects of seniority, yes, definitely, most definitely, but why shouldn't experience count? And at a time when India really needs the security from terror across the line of control, all our borders for that matter, it has to be a decision which is taken with a lot of consultation, with weighing all the aspects, and if the best kind of man for the occasion is Lieutenant Rawat, I don't see why we should be raising any kind of hue and cry. And as far as the opposition is concerned, I mean, I'm shocked at what the Congress spokesperson said, where he talks about, rumors about somebody belonging to some part of India. Now, that's the lowest of low. So I don't see this as a point of trying to make a political statement.
Yes.
This is nothing but frustration and insecurity at a time when there is a decision which is based on merit, based on competency, and based on experience.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need to be apologetic about it. And coming back to the 1980s, maybe the Congress should also answer about what happened during Vaidyaj's time.
Right. Let's not, get there and try and scrutinize the tenure of the former chiefs. But Uttam, Reddy, the point is that the government, the political class of the country has a certain vision for the security of this country. They find Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat as the most suited man for that kind of a job. You also heard what, in fact, Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad also said about his experience about the condition across the border. Why would you want to question this at the time when possibly the attacks in Kashmir are only increasing, the rate of attacks from across the border, the terrorists are being infiltrated every single day? You have a man which the government thinks is best suited to do the job. Let him do the job and then question if you find that they have not been able to do and exactly the government has not been able to perform.
Ankit, firstly, let me once again repeat that I myself was a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force and in many border stations for many years. Second, I'm very surprised at the Honorable General's remarks. He did not even mention that the procedure, the process normally followed to appoint an army chief has not been followed. 60 days earlier it is appointed. But for whatever reasons he had his view. I once again repeat that what message does this way of appointment sends to all the serving, this way of, yes, I was also in the Air Force, sir. This manner of appointing, what message does it send to the entire Indian Armed Forces, to all the Lieutenant Generals and the Air Marshals and the Vice Admirals? You are letting the political leadership become subjective. Start examining them.
Okay.
We should follow the convention, the tradition, the precedent that has been for many decades.
Okay.
We can't start comparing whether General Rawat, who is a very fine officer, General Praveen Bakshi or General Hari is better. I am of the view that we should not tinker, we should not tamper with the system.
Okay.
Lastly, I'm surprised the General Saab said about Pakistan. Pakistan consistently violates the military hierarchy. How can you even compare with them?
No, he's not comparing. He's not comparing our traditions with Pakistan. He's only saying the man on the other side also has a lot of experience as far as the Kashmir policy of Pakistan is concerned. So possibly Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat has also been put in charge to counter that.
Ankit, let me complete, please.
Sir, quickly, I have to go to my other guest. 10 seconds.
We are only saying we should not let.
You're saying all wrong things.
We should not let
you
the
may be a fighter
political
pilot, but you're
system
saying
of
all wrong
present
things.
time tamper with this.
All right, all right. So you say that the institutional sanctity should be ensured.
Can I get a reply to him?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. Then I'll go to Mr. Atul Anjan. Go ahead, sir.
I'm glad to hear a fighter pilot not knowing that even in the Air Force there has been a supersession at one time. You'll recall Air Marshal M.M. Singh was a great fighter pilot himself and superseded by Air Marshal Mehra. Let's not go that way. You recently had Shankar Sinha, Admiral, being superseded by Robin Dhawan. Let's not go that way. That's a wrong way to talk and the wrong way to go. I completely appreciate your fighter pilot, and you also must not make a comment to say that I said Pakistan. I clarified by saying we are not as politically oriented military as the Pakistan military. So don't try to misquote me, okay? That's one. And secondly, I have not gone into the procedure. If someone was to ask me a procedure, I will tell him what the procedure is. And I can tell you for certain that I know the procedure very well. I do not say that you do not know it. You must be knowing it equally well. But nobody ask me this question. If you want to know the procedure, I can tell you the procedure in detail.
Sir,
I can tell everybody the procedure. Please try to understand that all these army commanders are equally competent and all their record of services are available before the Cabinet Committee of Security. They have been filtered by many agencies before they reach the Cabinet Committee of Security. And the Cabinet Committee of Security takes the decision after great deliberation. And they do not want to take an army chief or a naval or air force chief in a hurry.
Okay.
And therefore,
yes,
let us not make this task difficult for the army. Let us not create a situation in the army where somebody saying armored corps and somebody saying infantry and somebody saying two Gurkhas. It's not a question of Gurkhas, Sikhs or Punjabis.
Yes.
It's a question of who are the six people.
All right,
and among
all
the
right.
six people, the government in their wisdom has chosen the man whom they think can reach the present situation. So let's not go political way.
Absolutely. Mr. Atul Anjan, I'm sure you're hearing what Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad is saying. Let's support the decision of the government. The job of the army chief is already difficult. Why do you want to create more hurdles for him, especially at a time when there is so much aggression from Pakistan on our borders?
I just want to say, let us, what General is saying, he is talking fully politics in the name of a non-political approach. He is a very good politician. He talks about the inside military, he knows hierarchy, he knows the rules, and he is trying to put the politics. I don't want to be the part of this man or that man.
So let's not get personal here.
I don't want to be.
Yes.
He is the part of the general or that general. I know him, so he's speaking. But I just want to let me speak. Let me speak. You have your own time. Now I just want to say, now the government has already taken a decision. We do not want to politicize it, but at the same time we know that we are discussing too much about the demonetization and what is happening on our borders. Today itself, three of our Jawans have been killed. The last 10 days, many of them have been killed by the, people from across the border. So I think now the point is this, the government should think over that all your correspondent had said there is a limitation of time, 30, 20, 60 days. Why this has not been happened? And I think if I am speaking something different, let us not be taken that I am anti-national. And everybody who is supporting the government, he becomes the nationalist and I become the anti-national.
Right,
and just want to tell you one thing, Ankit.
Yes, sir.
Ankit ji, one thing. Don't try. My father was also for 18 years in the jail during the freedom movement. Don't try to brand me the anti-national.
Right, sir. Okay.
I know. My mother was also.
Okay, sir.
So don't try to tell me who is national.
Let's stick to what we are discussing here. Jugal, very quickly coming to you. What do you make? What are you hearing from your sources within the Ministry of Defence and in the army about the two lieutenant generals, those who have been superseded? Usually, army, the structure of the army is the hierarchy is followed to the T. What about their future? A lot of people saying that they may even put in their papers.
That's right, Ankit. If there is a precedent, then perhaps the answer to your question is yes, though we are officially yet to hear anything on this aspect. But Ankit, in terms of the new chief, he'll be taking over on the 31st of December. It's generally seen that officers who've been superseded do not want to stick around to have one of their juniors as their boss. as also the fact that for the new boss, he should have his way. He should have, complete control in the manner in which he wants to post people, and he wants to have his own commanders are on the ground, because he should have his full mandate. So answering your question, Ankit, if you see what has been happening in the Navy, Admiral Shankar did go home when he was superseded by Admiral Robin Dhawan. General Sinha also did the same. And again, not comparing, but in Pakistan also, because that's been the latest place before us where supersession has happened. We've seen two of the senior generals to General Bajwa resigned after they had this appointment. Okay, back to you.
Shaina, a lot of course, the consensus almost is that now the government has decided. So of course, the opposition should also put their weight behind the man who's going to lead our army for next few years. But do you also, in retrospect, think that there possibly could have been the entire procedure could have been handled a little better? Maybe the government can now reach out to the opposition, just explain or just to speak to them, and at least the political class should now come out with a unified voice.
Absolutely not. We have nothing to be apologetic of. There is no kind of rule in the book to suggest that we have flouted any rule or norm, and this is a decision which is the prerogative of the government. I don't think we need to feel apologetic about it, or we need to repeatedly explain. The defense expert on your panel has clearly spelled out the procedure, so I'm not going to repeat. I only want to say that at a time when terror is the only consideration, please don't try to politicize even non-issues, and for those who are doing it for reasons best known to them, this is just one more issue that they want to bring, or rather point a finger at our government for. There is no reason to. You look at history, whether it's the 1970s, the 1980s, there can be so many examples cited of people who have, if I may use the term, because since you seem to be suggesting that jump the queue, but this is not even a question of jumping a queue. If there's 6-7 people in consideration, and we choose the person who has the maximum experience, whether it's the line of control, whether it's Myanmar, whether it's handling larger troops, it's important to understand that there is a lot of checking. This is the head of the army of the country of India that has a large, substantial threat to terror, has a threat when it comes to our borders, and I think by deliberating and discussing this, we shouldn't reduce the morale of the people even watching this debate. They must realize that this is a decision of solidarity, and we stand unitedly with the government on it.
I have just a minute and a half left on the show. I'll give 30 seconds to you, Mr. Reddy, and then of course to Mr. Anjan, and closing comments to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad. Go ahead, Mr. Reddy.
See, Ankit, what we would like to point out is that this government has consistently violated all norms in all the big appointments they have made so far. Whether it is the CVC, whether it is the CBC director, and now they have touched the most sacred institution of India, that's the army. Then this lady from the BJP who is speaking, I don't think she knows anything about the army. She is saying General Rawat only can handle the terror operations. She's actually undermining the role of General Praveen Bakshi or General Haris. And what all we are saying is, the army is a sacred institution. The lieutenant generals and the vice admirals and the air marshals don't have to run around the prime minister of the day to become the chiefs. It should be done only by seniority, as has been done for many decades.
Sir, it seems to be that you are trying to suggest that the chiefs now they are trying to get their way in. At least let's not imply anything like that. It is on the merit of all these gentlemen that these appointments are being made. Mr. Anjan, 20 seconds to you, sir. Final comments, and then I will close with Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad.
I don't want to make any political comment, just I want to remind you, when the General S.K. Sinha's matter was not discussed, Mr. Advani and Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Vachharaj Vyas and Bhairav Singh Shekhawat and many others, they took up the issue with Jai Prakash Narayan, making speeches in the general in public. At that point of time, it was not politicized. Now you are taking, when you are breaking all the norms and rules, you are trying to give us the sermons. Even then, I say, all the other generals, all the other senior, our defense leaders, those who are leading the different, whether it is Navy, Air or Territorial Army, I say we should not go with this. Let us not take it with a pinch of salt.
Right.
This is the decision of the government, but the government in the future, I think, should not take up this issue like this way, which has been handled by the present
Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, I'm completely out of time. Sir, last 20 seconds to you about what you make. You have very well explained the entire process and how it should be looked at. Closing comments to you, sir.
Look, we have very competent army commanders. We have very competent commanders in Praveen Bakshi and in General Harris and the other army commanders. Extremely good people. We have a man who is today appointed as the army chief, which the government has found to be the best person to lead the army in the current situation. The entire nation, all political parties must support him and must not make his task more difficult. Please understand, it's a very, very tough job.
Absolutely.
It's a very taxing job.
I'm completely out of time, and that's a fantastic thought to wrap this discussion on. It's a tough job. The entire political class in the country should now support the new army chief in his endeavor. Thank you so much for all the spokesperson of the BJP, the left, and also the Congress. Also, thanks to my colleague Jugal Purohit and Gaurav Sawant. Thanks to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad for giving us their point of view on this topic. With that, we are slipping to a very short break. Coming up next is Unforgettable.
You are watching India Today.